What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about a super common problem when it comes to doing ab work. And what that problem is even though you're doing ab work, a lot of people don't feel what they're doing in their abs. Now that can be for a lot of reasons. Maybe you're just doing bad exercises, but what I find is a lot of people tend to be hip flexor dominant, and that's why they're not feeling what they're doing actually in their abs. If you're hip flexor dominant, then that means you're utilizing your hip flexors to perform your ab movements instead of using your abs. Now this is actually very common. A lot of people tend to use their hip flexors more than their abs when doing a lot of exercises, and that can be for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest reason is because you have weak abs. Now it's actually a vicious cycle because you have weak abs, so you're utilizing your hip flexors to perform the ab movements, which in turn is making your abs even more weak. So no matter what you do, you can't strengthen your abs because, like I said, you're using your hip flexors because your abs are weak. You can also be utilizing your hip flexors during ab movements because of its function. The function of the hip flexors is to stabilize the pelvis. So a lot of the movements we do to target our abs involve bringing our pelvis up or our legs up to some capacity. So our hip flexors are going to be taking the brunt of that work because that's what they're designed to do. So if you find that you're one of these people that no matter what you do, you don't feel it in your abs, or maybe you do feel it in your abs, but you don't see any results, if your hip flexors are firing when you're doing your ab exercises, if you have low back pain when you're doing your ab exercises, if you're that person, then there's actually a couple things you can do in order to really target your abs, minimizing the work of the hip flexors. So the first thing we can do has to do with the little principle called reciprocal inhibition. So what that means is basically one muscle must relax for the other to contract. Now, the most basic example of that would be your bicep and your tricep. In order to fully contract your tricep, your bicep is going to have to be at maximal stretch, so maximal relaxation. If I was to contract my bicep, then my tricep must go into full stretch and must be relaxed. The same thing applies to any other part of our body. Our quads, our hamstrings, our chest, our back, the same thing. So when we're doing ab movements, if you focus on squeezing your glutes and your hamstrings, then due to reciprocal inhibition, you're going to be relaxing your hip flexors. So when you relax your hip flexors, they're not going to be doing the work that your abs should be doing. For example, as you can see with the hanging leg raise, as I'm bringing my legs up and down, in addition to contracting my abs, I'm also really focusing on contracting my glutes and my hamstrings. This will automatically prevent my hip flexors from contributing too much to this exercise. The focus now shifts to my abs bringing my legs up and down rather than my hip flexors. You can use this tactic for a whole bunch of other exercises. I just gave the hanging leg raise because it's an amazing ab exercise, but if you're hip flexor dominant, you're not necessarily going to feel the benefit of it where you should. The second thing we can do is to actually not do ab exercises that involve our hip flexors at all. Like I said, the function of the hip flexors is to stabilize the pelvis. So if we're doing something like a lying leg raise and your hip flexor dominant, when you bring your legs up, you're going to be relying on your hip flexors instead of your lower abs to perform that exercise. So if we just take out our hip flexors,
if you just cut off your legs,
if you just cut off your legs, then you won't worry about it. So if you just take out exercises that hugely involve your hip flexors, you're not going to have to worry about it. For example, as you can see here, I'm doing a cable wood chopper, which just involves my abs. I'm not using my hip flexors at all because my pelvis is stabilized. The same goes if I'm doing an overhead walkout, an overhead jump, a resistance band upper crunch, or even these different plank variations. Another awesome exercise we can do just to target the abs is gymnast abs. Now the best place to do this is going to be on a captain's chair, but as you can see, I'm not at the gym, so I don't have a captain's chair just lying around my house. But you can do this on a countertop, or some other platform where you can just put your hands up as if you were at a captain's chair. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're just gonna wanna basically lift your pelvis up. As you can see me doing here, my main focus is just bringing my pelvis up into that tuck position. So if you are hip flexor dominant, that could be your best bet until your abs are strong enough. Just take away exercises that involve your hip flexors, so like you can strengthen your abs, and then when they are strong enough, you can go back to incorporating those exercises. The third thing we can do is actually limit the range of motion of your exercise. Now, I am a huge proponent what's the fucking word?
Proponent?
Now, I am a huge proponent.
I am a huge proponent.
Now, I'm a huge
Advocate. Well, you switch.
Now, I'm a huge advocate for, what was I even saying? Oh, now I'm a huge proponent for doing exercises to a full range of motion. And I'm actually going to be putting out another video talking about that. However, when it comes to certain ab exercises, we know that at a certain point in the movement, that's when our hip flexors take over in completing the exercise. So if we know that, then at the point where our hip flexors take over, we can just stop that exercise and start on your second rep. A good way to know when your hip flexors are taking over the movement is basically when your legs and your pelvis stop working together. Now, for example, if we're doing a reverse crunch with a leg lowering, during the eccentric phase, our pelvis and our legs are working together. But at a certain point, once our pelvis is back on the ground, our legs take over and finish out the eccentric motion of the leg lowering. So if we stop once our pelvis touches the ground and then we begin our next rep, that's going to negate our hip flexors taking over that movement. So doing something small like that, where usually if you don't go to the full range of motion, it's going to negatively impact that exercise you just performed. Doing something like this actually manipulates it so you can target the area that you really do want to work. So there you guys go. Hopefully this video helped you out if you tend to be utilizing your hip flexors more than you want to during ab exercises. Those are 3 things that you guys can check out and try, see if they work for you. Maybe one of them will work, maybe all 3 of them will work. But hopefully, like I said, this video helped you in some sort. Please give the video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And I got a bunch of cool stuff coming for you guys that I think you're gonna like in the future. So keep checking back in, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. There's a bug on your neck.
On my neck? Is that for real? Where?
It's gone.
Jeez, what the hell? You just tell me you don't wipe it off? Jeez Louise. Not nice. It's like, excuse me, your hair's on fire. Your hair's on fire. You know, you weren't gonna help me?
I'm actually crying.